Assalamu alaikum. Very important that we remember inside this greeting is one of the attributes of Allah. So when we give this greeting, we're praying that Allah's peace, see, may the peace that comes from the source of peace be on your life. You know how important that is? As-salam, may the peace that comes from the source of peace, not from the world, not what the world say peace is. See, because there's so much trouble in the world. See, man and woman is longing for peace. That's why Allah says in the Quran that He named you Muslim both before and in this revelation. See, peace is the very foundation of life. When you look around, the tragedy, the death, the destruction, the pain, poverty, people losing jobs, troubled souls, they're longing for peace. They want peace. So we remind each other, understanding all that we may be going through. May Allah peace be on your life. See, because you never know a person's state. You never know a person's state internally. You never know a person's state psychologically. You never know a person's state medically, financially. So we pray all the time, may Allah peace be on your life. Because as you move from a place of peace, see, when we come together, we realize there's a spirit of brotherly and sister love. So we extend this greeting to create the kind of condition where we can bond with each other. When we leave this area, when we leave one another, we extend that prayer. May Allah peace be on your life. As you go out into the world, may Allah peace be on you. Amen. As you move with all the vice, as you look at the disrespect for senior citizens, we pray may Allah's peace be on your life. Because you don't know what this person's going to be faced with. So as you go on your journey, I pray that Allah's peace travel with you as you go on your journey. So this is a very, very profound greeting, prayer, and the reminder. See, because it's also a reminder of our obligation to keep peace. See, we work for peace. Because where there's no peace, there can be no progress. Our whole mission is to work to create peace. That's why even in the Quran, Allah says, if brothers and sisters have a contention, they have a problem with each other, then we should try to minimize the problem. And the one who's the most aggressive, then all of those witnessing that event should go against the one who is the aggressor. See, that's how much Allah wants us to establish and work for peace, because where there's no peace, there can be no progress. So when we give this greeting of Assalamu alaikum, we're reminding each other, not just of the greeting, but we're reminding each other also of our obligation to work to promote and advance peace. Because again, where there's no peace, there can be no progress. So this greeting is a constant reminder of Allah's peace being on our lives. And as I think about the world, as I think about the state of America, I'm reminded of Surah An-Nas. I'm reminded of when we go into this surah, we're seeking refuge. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. I seek refuge in the evolver of man. I seek refuge from the one who willed all of this into existence. And the reason why we seek refuge, we seek protection, is because of the disruption of the peace. Because of man's ability to be adverse. When you look at tragedy, you look at pain that people are going through, and because they're going through pain, they want to inflict their pain on other people. Vice, criminality, pedophile behavior. See, we have to seek Allah's protection. He makes it very, very clear. Say, Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. I seek refuge with the Lord and cherisher of man. See, this life is so precious. Last week we talked about the great value of the Hajj. And we discussed that Hajj is the greatest sociological lesson for the world. Because Hajj shows us it reminds us about the sacredness of this great life that Allah created. And we highlighted that word haram. And how the person puts on the ikram. And when they put on the ikram, they put on these two sheets to cover the private parts. But when they put on the ikram, they are displaying humanism. They're displaying humanism and their connection to Allah and not things. Man is so connected to things that he's disconnected from Allah. He's so connected to things that he's disconnected from other human beings. And because he's disconnected from other human beings, he does not see the sacredness of that life. That's why when you put on ikram, you're not making a fashion statement. You're making a social statement of dignity and respect as a sacred human being. That's what the ikram suggests, because when you put the ikram on, you go into a state of consciousness of decency, sacredness, love, regard for life, Allah and life. So you put the ikram on, you step into what is called the haram. You step into a sacred place. A place where all of these human beings who have the same thinking congregate. People who have respect for the sacredness of life. And I discussed to you many, many years ago, Imam A.K gave many lectures, a series of lectures on the sacred life connection. Sacred life connection. Because see, Nas means he is a social being. And that being knows how to congregate and move and interact with other human beings without causing injury or harm. So we go into this state of regardfulness, of understanding the sacred worth that Allah gave you as a human being, the sacred worth. And everything about the Hajj gives attention to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Allah says in the Quran, we follow Milatu Ibrahim. We follow the way of Ibrahim. And Ibrahim's way is a way of devotion, is a way of rationale, of reasoning, and is a way of faith. In fact, Allah said that Ibrahim himself is an ummah. That Ibrahim is a model for you to live your life on. Pattern your life on the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So much that a person walked to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "Oh, best of creation." And the Prophet's response was, "Who are you talking about, Ibrahim?" See, everything you do on Hajj is a commemoration of the struggle of Ibrahim. That's why we go to the station of Ibrahim. We go to the Kaaba when the Quran Allah says Ibrahim and his son raised the foundation of the house. In fact, a surah in the Quran is called Ibrahim. All throughout the Quran Allah talks about Ibrahim. Because of his devotion. Making the rational appeal after he broke the idols. He said, who broke our idols? The Prophet Ibrahim says, ask the big one. Listen, now you know he can't talk. So you worship that which can do you no good or do you no harm? See, the rational appeal, because Ibrahim represents the rational urge in the human being to think things through. And you look at society, you will see that people are not thinking things through. They're just operating. They've been conditioned to operate impulsively without giving any thought to the action that they take. Just look around. Look how people behave. You see how did that person could not have thought that through. See, I know that brother over there in Philadelphia. I know he could not have thought that through. That's why Ibrahim represents the rational urge to reason. Let me think this through now, because I want to come to the logical conclusion. Because Shaitan wants me to operate on passions and emotions. And if I move on passions and emotions, then that's going to lead to nothing but destruction. Because when you move on passions and destruction, you're moving on just appetite. And when you just move on appetite, it can become destructive because there's nothing to manage the emotions. Like a wild animal. The wild animal, it moves strictly off instinct to do what it does with no reason. Very little reasoning with an animal. So Allah said, we follow Millat Ibrahim, the way of Ibrahim. So we talked about when Prophet Muhammad was in Mina. Remember we talked about the word haram, we talked about ikram, putting on the 2 sheets to cover your private parts. So you're making a social statement, a statement of dignity and respect, as opposed to a fashion statement. See, some people get caught up into fashion, name brand, and they never get into the human being. They wear names of people they don't even know. I remember I used to sell this oil. I bought this oil. It had this young lady name on the oil. But the way the young lady was living, they said, no, we're not going to sell this because this is not reflective of our lifestyle. We're talking about decency, morals, character. We see this woman as being somewhat immoral. Not that she can't change, but the behavior is not a reflection of what we're about. So they changed the name. They changed the name to morality. And what I'm saying is sometimes people making these fashion statements, when people name, they don't know what that person represents. So we put the ikram on you, getting into the human being, not making a fashion statement, but a statement of dignity. That's why Allah says, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ الْخَيْرُ, that the best dress is consciousness of Him. When you're conscious of Him, you don't have to worry about being indecent. So we put the ikram on these 2 sheets, to cover the private part. We're going into a state of awareness, of regardfulness of the sacredness of life. I can't emphasize that enough. The sacredness of life. That's why the verse says, say, A'udhu bi Rabbin nas, say I seek refuge, protection in the evolver of man. See, some people are getting stuck in the physical state. See, there's 3 stages of development. Nafsul amara, the being of passions and desires, you're driven with appetite. Nafsul amara, his command. He's moving on appetite, urges. That's why we talked before where it says, Nike put the commercial out, obey your thirst. So just obey your appetite. Don't think about it, just obey your appetite. That's what we talk about. Allah said that Ibrahim is a model because Ibrahim was willing to obey, even though it seemed strange. The vision was, you're going to sacrifice your son. And then the son agreed to say, Dad, if that's what you have to do, I'm willing to follow what needs to be done. And then with all the attempts, he's obeying the command. With all the attempts, Allah said, you fulfilled the vision. But it was his willingness to obey. Not that he did it, but his willingness to obey Allah. Allah said, you're blessed for that obedience. Not obey your thirst, not obey the influence of the shaitan, not to obey the marketers, but to obey Allah. And when we obey Allah, he says, he's Rabb, he's Rabb, he's going to allow you to graduate. But some people are stuck. Nafsul Amana. They're stuck on the physical, on the appetite, on the urges. And they don't move past that stage. So it says, Kul a'udhu bi Rabbin nas. He's evolving you. He's growing you up. He's educating you. And some people are just miseducated. They're miseducated about the sacredness of life. That's why they can just have no regard for life. And all you have to do is just look around the world and the country. You'll see there's a very low value placed on life. In fact, there's one verse in the Quran where Allah says that you don't slay the sacred life. You talk about the sacred life. And that's what we have to educate people on, the sacredness of this human being. Because Allah says, that He created the human being from one soul. So that's why when you put on Ikram Al Hadi, you put the Ikram on, you talking about a soulful connection. Not connecting you with on any other basis, but as a human being. And people have been miseducated on what it means to be a human being, and then how do you measure human worth. See, people walk around with an invisible ruler that they measure human worth. And oftentimes they measure worth of a human being based on what that human being has, as opposed to who that person is. See, people start forming relationships based on what you have. We're in a certain class. We got cars. We got nice cars. They bond on that. We got nice motorcycles. We friends on that. But Allah says, He looks at your heart. See, that's the real worth of a human being. So much, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that I come not except but to perfect character. That's how you measure a human being, based on character, because that's what's going to last. So you can strip the human being of everything. As long as he has his character, he's going to stay sound. But as long as he has his internal life, he's going to get those things back. But sometimes when people lose those things, they lose their life. Because they measure themselves based on having things, tangible things, as opposed to the intangibles. The intelligence, the decency, the character, the love. See, that's the real worth of a human being. Because Allah says that He breathed of His spirit into the human being. And then that human being became a living soul. That spirit. And it is that spirit in the human being that can inspire other human beings to do and be more. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. That's what I go. That's what I go. So we're talking about Ibrahim and his powerful role in this creation. And with all the vice, oppression, idolatry, giving into the forces that was turning people away from their great worth as human beings. Ibrahim said that was an oppressive environment, heavy into idolatry. That's right. In fact, that's what Prophet Muhammad had to clean the Kaaba out of idols. Ibrahim said, with all that was coming against him, he said that surely I turned my face towards the originator who created the heavens and the earth, and I am not of those who associate partners with Allah. See, Ibrahim says, surely I turn my face, I turn my life to him who is the originator. See, when you look at this human being, this precious, sacred human being we've been talking about, sometimes people turn their face towards things. When life becomes challenging, people turn to drugs. When life becomes challenging, people turn to getting stuck in depressive states where they just can't seem to get out. They turn to violence. They turn to guns. That's why you have so many people with all these guns and all this sick behavior. Because they've been introduced to some kind of pain in their lives, and now they want to inflict that pain on other people. But Ibrahim said, even in an oppressive environment, surely I turn my face, I turn to the originator. See? Not all this artificial thinking, all these artificial things, these artificial ideals that are moving people from the originator of the heavens and earth. He said, I turn to him who keeps me in my original state. That's what Ibrahim was saying. I'm going to turn to the one who's keeping me in the state of being Hanifa. See, Ibrahim is the one who's Hanifa and being upright. That's Ibrahim. He's being upright. People turn to drugs, and the drugs turn them down, and they bowing down to drugs and going down, literally. I turn myself to him who keeps me in my original state. Because the mission of the devil is to have us bowing to other things, keeping us disconnected from that sacred human being. Because that's what Nas is. The word Nas is it's a social being who's connected. And the whole mission of the devil is to create disconnect. That's why Allah says through gambling and intoxication, Shaitan works to create division and to keep people from the remembrance of Allah. And once you keep division, you'll find people risking their lives over small stuff. People just risk their lives over anything because they don't seem to measure the sacredness of life. This life is valuable. Why does Allah talk about gambling and intoxicants? Because if you start giving into gambling and intoxicants, then that means that your life is driven by risk. Not healthy risk, but your life is driven by risk, and you'll do almost anything. Now Allah said that's the handiwork of Shaitan. And his mission is to create division amongst the social being. Linas. So Ibrahim says, I turn my face, I turn towards the originator. I turn towards Akbar, I turn towards the greatest force who can help me to manage and navigate through this pain. All of us are going to experience some pain. And the question is not will we experience pain. The question is how will we deal with the pain. That becomes the question. And most people have not been taught how do you deal with pain. How do you deal with the challenges of life? See, Ibrahim said with all that pain in his midst, I'm not going to turn to their forces. I'm going to turn to the originator who's going to keep me in my original state. And that original state is to connect with the evolve of life. That's why the verse says, and say, I seek refuge with the evolve of life. So you turn to him, he'll lift you up above your pain over time. That's why the biblical verse says, and this too shall pass. Over time, you're going to find ways to manage that pain, to cope with that pain. But some people can't seem to get past the idea that you got to go through some things. See, in life, you're going to go through some things. And if you've been taught how to cope, then those things that you go through are going to develop you. That's why Allah even tells us over and over, He said, verily, so verily, with every difficulty there is relief. And He emphasized the remaining verse, verily, with every difficulty there is relief. You're going to find a way to get through the pain. But if you turn to people who can't help you to get past the pain, if you turn to drugs that's going to take you there, if you turn to violence and begin to inflict your pain on other people, there's no way for you to get through your pain. And that's what you find happening through America and the world. People just haven't learned how to cope. They haven't been taught how to cope. But as you read this Quran is creating a certain kind of human being. Remember we read this hadith when Prophet Muhammad was on Minna? Prophet Muhammad said, while at Minna, and what you go through during Hajj, you go to Minna before you go to the Jamrat. And Prophet Muhammad said when you stone the image of Shaitan, the symbol, not the image, the symbol. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, asked the question, do you know what day this is? They said, Allah and His Messenger knows best. He said, this is a sacred day. Do you know what city this is? They said, Allah and His Messenger knows best. He said, this is a sacred city. If we go to Harlem, back to Harlem, the sacredness. Do you know what month this is? They said, Allah and His Messenger knows best. He said, this is a sacred month. Then he said, surely Allah has made sacred to you your blood and your property and your honor, as this day of yours is sacred in this month and in this city of yours. Do you know what kind of human being is being created if they're talked about the sacredness of life? The sacredness of a place, that your blood is sacred, that your property. Muhammad the Prophet said in this verse, this hadith, that your honor is sacred. See, you have a great reverence for a human being when you're taught that the human being's blood and their honor, their property is sacred. Can you imagine the kind of human being that's being produced with this kind of language? They have great reverence for the sacredness of life. That you learn how to perceive people. You look at people in a certain way. That Allah is telling you that this human being I've created and deposited wealth within them, great potential in their body. This is a sacred being. This is a being that is worthy of your protection. Not just your physical protection, but you protect their honor. You don't just let people talk about this great human being. You protect their property. You don't just let people abuse this dignified human being. Allah says that this human being is honorable. They're sacred, just like this sacred city in this sacred month, which we was talking about last month, which was Hajj. So this great human being, we have to keep emphasizing about the word haram. I'm going to leave you with that. This word haram, when you put on the ikram, you're going to a certain state. And that's just not something that you just do on Hajj. That's what you do after you get back. You remain in that state. You work hard. That's why Muhammad the Prophet said that your best jihad is Hajj. It's not something that you just do when you make the physical journey, but it's something you live out when you come back home amongst human beings. And that your life will continue to be a struggle, not just a physical struggle, but an internal struggle. Struggle with these ideals of how you classify people. That's a struggle. There's a lot of isms Classism, a lot of that in the world. Racism, a lot of that in the world. It's a big struggle. We're going to be struggling with those isms from here to the end of time. All these isms that begin to minimize the sacredness of this human being. So you hide your struggle, not just there, but when you come back home, you got to work through those things. You got to work through how do I navigate this ideal of dealing with other human beings. Do I elevate my thinking about what do I see in a human being? I'm dealing with a human being. So Allah said that, He says, Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin nas. I seek refuge with the evolver of man. Because man can be a problem. The human being can be a problem. And if he doesn't understand the sacredness of that life, he will be a threat to other human beings. That's why Prophet Muhammad said, this is sacred. That your blood, your property, your honor is sacred. And that's what the world needs to be taught. The world needs to be taught, how do you deal with the human being? Every time I turn on the news, there's some abuse towards human beings. The sickness moving in society. Because no one taught them how do you deal with the human being. And then if you got problems, don't turn to drugs that's going to distort your thinking. Because you got to almost be hiding out your mind with the way I see them do senior citizens. Something got to be wrong with you. That there's senior citizen abuse. Because they don't see the sacredness of this life that Allah created. They see it as a pastime. Verse says, say you seek refuge. You got to seek protection from Allah. From the mischief of the created things. That's sort of the fellow. That you seek refuge in Him from the mischief. Not that the creation itself is mischief. It's bad. But the potential in the creation after man touches it can be overwhelmingly bad. So we have to teach what it means to operate as a civilized, respectful, decent human being who's connected with Allah. And we have to be the model of being in this sacred state. Where Allah said that we follow Millat Ibrahim. And Ibrahim was Hanifa, Ibrahim was upright, integrity, character, decency, strength, the willingness to obey Allah. That becomes a problem. Just the whole ideal of being willing to obey Allah over all other influences in the world. That's a problem for people. They obey everyone but Allah. That's what we told you. They create the whole idea, just tell people, obey your thirst. For a long, many years, Sprite said, obey your thirst. Just obey appetite. Just obey passion. No, we say, obey Allah. And when you obey Allah, you're going to have respect for the life that He created. So Allah says, we follow Millat Ibrahim. We follow the way of Ibrahim, who was Hanifa, who was upright. Resist the temptation of alcohol and drugs that's going to take you down, having you bowing down to things. He said, I turn my face to Him. Don't turn the other thing. You turn the other thing, it's going to take you down. If you turn to Allah, it's going to take you up. And he said that Ibrahim was his friend. Ibrahim was Khalil. And we got to be friends to each other. I remember I had a problem spelling the word friend. It means so much to me. I had a problem spelling the word friend in school. And some of you may be good spellers. I wasn't a good speller. And I would write friend, F-R-E-I-N-D. My teacher said, no, that's not how you spell friend. And then he went to the whole thing about remember the rule that the I comes before the E. I didn't know that rule. My teacher said, I'm going to show you how to write the word friend. So she got on the board and she took the chalk. I'm on the blackboard. Chalk, squeaking, F-R-I-E-N-D. She said, always remember that a friend, and she circled E-N-D, that a friend will stick with you to the end. That's a friend. You're going to go through some things, but your friend going to stay with you. Your friend ain't going to switch up on you. Your friend going to be there with you to the end. That's a friend. Allah said that Allah was a friend. Because Ibrahim showed that I'm willing to obey you, Allah, as tough as it may be. I'm going to follow what my friend tells me to do. Why? Why? Because my friend has my best interest at heart. And we have to learn to be friends together. When we become friends with one another, we can grow in love, respect, decency, and really work for preserving this sacredness, for preserving this life that has so much to offer to the world. This life has so much to offer to the world. That's why Allah says He's Rabb. He's the one who is evolving the life so that the life can be strong enough to make its contribution to the world. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.